Entering the fourth week of testimony, the latest now in the disgraced South Carolina attorney Alex Murdaugh's double murder trial. The defense team will finally get their chance this week to present their version of events after more than 3 weeks of testimony from prosecutors. Court is off today for the President's Day holiday, but tomorrow Murdaugh's legal team will continue to build their defense, and they'll call their own witnesses to the stand. Joining us this morning, former FBI special agent and attorney Stuart Kaplan. He's been following the case closely with us as an FBI analyst and also as an attorney, and boy, has this been something to watch. Good to see you this morning. I've heard it described a lot of dots that the prosecution has put forth for the jury, but not a lot of lines connecting those dots. How would you characterize how the prosecution has done so far?
I think the prosecution has accomplished what I think they set out to do, and that is to create a scenario where the jury is going to be not well supportive of Alex Murdaugh. I think he presents very poorly. I think the takeaway is they're not going to like him, and so that any decision that may go either way, I think is going to go towards the prosecution. What you're going to see this week play out from the defense's perspective is all they need to do is create some reasonable doubt, not exclude all doubt, but just create reasonable doubt. I think if they end up being successful in creating reasonable doubt without the necessity of putting Alex Murdaugh on the stand, I think that's the ultimate goal. As far as I see it, I don't think the defendant wants to or should take the stand on his own behalf in this type of case.
Who do you think would be the strongest witness for the defense, if not Alex Murdaugh? Would it be a member of his family?
No, I think to the contrary. I think the issue really is going to boil down to, can the defense team create a situation where the jury, when they go back to deliberate, number one is that whether, regardless of whether or not he's a fraudster or a liar or, is addicted to, painkillers, what would have ultimately been his motive? Now, motive is not an element of the crime charged, but again, they want to try, meaning the defendant is going to want to try to accomplish a scenario where maybe there's someone else out there who ultimately is responsible. And the way to create that situation, meaning create a reasonable doubt, did law enforcement, were they inept? Were they incompetent? Were they sloppy? Did they quickly, knee-jerk reaction, zero in on Alex Murdaugh to the exclusion of any possible other subjects? And I think that's the only takeaway that the defense has, is to try to create a situation where there may be some other individual out there who ultimately is responsible for the double homicide.
Right. We just saw an image of Curtis Smith. He's known as Cousin Eddie. He's been someone that's connected to Alex Murdaugh. He is accused of shooting him in that murder-for-hire plot on the side of the road. I think it's interesting that the jury has not been able to take any notes during this. And you look at prosecution called 61 witnesses. They introduced more than 550 pieces of evidence in 17 days of testimony. How does the jury even keep track of testimony and the evidence and some of the gruesome details of that night?
So to that point, Marnie, and that's an excellent takeaway, is that's why I think ultimately this case is going to boil down to the closing arguments. And what you will hear from the prosecution is a very methodical, a very slow and meticulous presentation of all the facts. And what they will remind the jurors is that once they go to retire to deliberate, they do have the ability to summon all of the evidence that has been offered into this particular case. And I think that's something that you're going to see the prosecution harp on, to make sure that if there's any question of whether there's a difference of opinions amongst them when they're deliberating, to please fall back on asking and requesting the retrieval of the evidence, whether it's sworn testimony, a video statement, or otherwise. And I think that the prosecution is going to be, really hitting that point home during their summation. This case is going to boil down to the summation of the defendant's counsel as well as the prosecution's counsel.
Real quickly, Stuart, how problematic is it for the prosecution that they don't have the murder weapons to present to the jury?
I don't think it's problematic because the bottom line is I think they have proven that Alex Murdaugh is not a person who in any way can be believable or credible. And the fact that the murder weapon has not been obtained or recovered, I think that's going to be inconsequential with respect to all of the other damning evidence that has been presented. Look, this case boils down to circumstantial evidence. And to your point, a lot of dots out there. You are quite correct that the dots don't necessarily draw a straight line. But when you look at the individual and you kind of peel away the layers of the onion and you expose Alex Murdaugh for what he really is and for what he really stands for, I think there's just such a distaste for anything that he offers up. And I think ultimately the jury is going to come back and render a guilty verdict in this particular case.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.